All right, let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakudash. Welcome to the live lesson. The name of this one is basically just an open forum dated April 10th, 2025, the hopeful year of Esau's destruction and our deliverance. And I'm here with the elder Gadawan,
Shalom.
the elder Hanak,
Shalom, shalom.
and the brother Shamar,
Shalom.
Priest Shamar, Officer Shamar, or what is it?
Captain
Shamar. All right, so we're just gonna do an open forum, whatever comes to mind, whatever precepts brothers have, anything, any talking points they want to bring out. There's so much happening around the world, so much to talk about. From Trump and his tariffs to the scoffers, Lord judging scoffers, and the America's falling apart. I was just talking to the elder Gad about if they still speak in the same spot that we spoke when I was here in 2017, and he said that gap is gone. He said all them businesses are through out there. So that's like do you know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the scripture, the worm is spread under thee. In Isaiah 14. Say something on that, guy?
Con, so, Lord willing, when we have camp tomorrow, the apostle, he's going to see it for himself, the difference of San Francisco from when he saw it in 2017, I believe.
Yep.
Which was the boom. The city was actually booming back then. It was probably the richest city in the world. It had most venture capital than anywhere else. They had Twitter. They had all the businesses there. AI was on its way, starting. And now you go to that city, it's empty. All the stores are gone. The mall's gone. Well, the mall's there, but all the stores left. Macy's is about to go bankrupt there. Their business, their buildings defaulting. The Nordstrom is gone. The Bloomingdale's was the biggest store there in that mall across the street from where we do camp is gone. So as much as they want to blame it on Amazon and the economy and this and that, it's really the Mossad getting rid of America. Okay. Yeah. And the whole part, the whole heart of the city, which is where we teach, is a derelict. Right? It's nothing but junkies everywhere. Okay, nothing but illegals. Because that's another thing. This whole thing with Trump coming in here, ICE and all this stuff. San Francisco is a sanctuary city. California is a sanctuary state. Brothers here, we notice it. We get like, this motherfucker's an illegal.
Right.
This guy does not know how to drive, does not know what's going on.
Right.
He's just a fucking Colombian or a Honduran or El Salvadoran out here up to no good. Okay, because a lot of them are what? Males. They're 25.
Right.
Okay, they all got here for a reason. And what are they doing out here? They're up to no good. And a lot of them, they will take the chip. If the so-called white man came and said, take this chip to be an American, they would do it. But right now, Esau's cranking down on them and getting rid of them. And so this whole experiment that this Biden, Kamala spirit, it's a failure. That's why this guy Trump is coming in, right? We always talk about how everything's a cycle, right? Before COVID, there was a thing called the Spanish flu. That was like in 1918. Yep. And then soon after the Spanish flu, you had World War II. World War One? Was it
World War One was during the time.
It was during the time of the Spanish flu, right? And World War II ended up happening. Why? Because you had fascist governments coming to power, mainly the Germans, but also the Italians had a fascist government, and so did the Japanese. So a lot of these people talk about, America's becoming fascist. Well, it's always been like that, but now you're going to see more of a totalitarian, authoritarian government,
right?
Because the Chinese, they're an authoritarian government. That's why this whole thing with China and the U.S., that trade war, is hot and ready right now. And this whole trade wars lead to what? Real wars.
Yeah. And it's funny because when that Spanish flu came, like about 11 years in the future, that's when you had the stock market crash, the Great Depression. So pretty much that's what we're dealing with right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after this, it was 2020 when that whole thing went down. Now we're at the point now where, you know, Trump is making erratic moves. You know, so threatening these countries with these different tariffs, and these countries are like, okay, you want to do that, we're going to do the same thing, and it's sending the stock markets, they're going crazy. You have people that supported Trump, they lost 20 tens of billions, tens of millions of dollars, so this whole society is collapsing because the Lord is bringing it down. I got a quick precept, and then if y'all got any points in these scriptures. It's Ecclesiastes 12:3. It says, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. Now, the keepers of the house are the economists. That's what the word economy means. It means house management. So these economists, they're trembling because they're not seeing the future, that they once were able to see, because they're able to see that, look at the numbers and predict, okay, this particular stock is going to do good, this particular stock is going to do good. But right now, everything is like erratic. All these different moves are erratic because of the Lord is bringing this place down, and the international banking families, which the Lord is using, they're causing this panic because what they want to do is they want to implode the whole system to get rid of the old system and bring in a new system. It says, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few. And that's why, like the Elder Gad was speaking about, them different businesses that used to be there. And once you got those big businesses like Macy's and Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, you said too, right? When you have things like business like that leaving, that's you pretty much might as well say that place is done. Because they could afford to to lose small mom and pop businesses or smaller businesses, but that's pretty much their revenue, right there.
Yeah, they were paying a lease, $100,000 a month lease.
Damn, see?
Right, so that's money that's out the door.
Yeah.
Not to mention the lease that Westfield was paying for the actual mall itself. They dipped out before that. And like you were saying, the keepers, right? The economists, the stocks. The reason why Egypt was great was because Joseph told them about the stocks. And told them what stock to invest in. And that stock was the grains. Because he was able to break down that vision for Pharaoh. Okay, and he had the vision and said, you know what? That means we got to store because there's a drought was coming. And that stock made Egypt even more great and even more powerful. It was all through the spirit. But right now, like you're saying, that grinding is ceasing. The whole reason behind the tariffs is that, in theory, Trump wants the grinding to come back here because it all left during the 90s with Clinton when he signed off NAFTA. When he signed NAFTA, all the grinding of manufacturing all went to Canada, mainly to Mexico. And then he signed that bill with China, and it all went out to China. And I've been doing finding out about what China's been doing, because there's this thing on the news. They said, Trump, he's putting tariffs on penguins. I don't know if you caught that, right? Yeah. They made it the propaganda media. They're coming out with this headline, but really, it's because before Trump left office, before COVID, he was in a trade war with China, right? Before the China virus hit. And he was hitting them with these same type of tariffs. And the Chinese actually started moving their factories out of China into places like Vietnam and Thailand and India to circumvent those tariffs that Trump was putting on. So this time, this guy Trump, he has the understanding and also the support and wherewithal to come full force and put it on everybody like a blanket tariff. Right. And he's doing it with the understanding that, okay, this is how it's done. And what he's done is he's isolated the Chinese economy. So now they're being forced to come to the table because the Chinese, they don't have what what the Americans have or what the EU have, all these different political parties and influencers coming around. They have a single party that controls everything. So it's pretty much head from the top on down.
It's head down control.
It's head down control dictatorship, So they don't have that problem. They don't have that pressure within themselves as much as you would have it here. Like you see, Trump, he caved this or that. So the Chinese now they're being brought forward to actually negotiate now. Before, the Chinese always came through with a very egotistical way of negotiating, saying we're not negotiating. There's a deal. We're going to stick that deal. We ain't doing nothing. But now, as you can see, it's changing. The world is kind of changing with this whole tariff thing. But really, it's gearing the world up for World War III.
Yeah. Yep.
It's geared because the Chinese, they don't want to play this game. All right, and the other nations don't want to play this game either.
Yeah.
And the USA, in order for them to go to war, they need to bring manufacturing back.
Yep.
So in order for the USA to go to war with the rest of the world, which the Heavenly Father has planned, they got to bring back some manufacturing, which is part of the whole reason why this guy Trump is doing it. Plus the EU, they're getting buddy with who? They're getting buddy with China. They're getting buddy with China. They're going to get buddy with who?
Russia.
The Russians.
Yep. Like even Turkey.
The Turkish.
Got precept.
Turkey's like they like pretty much fuck NATO. We're going with Russia. But that's prophecy.
And then the whole thing with NATO too. The USA and NATO is probably the worst. The USA is going to get out of the NATO soon through the Spirit. Well, that's part of the prophecy. It's going to happen eventually. Yep. But you can see everything being brought forward and being pushed into your face now. And also, one last thing. I remember when we first started teaching out here in Berkeley, when we had the OG sign with the missile with the USSR on it, right? And they would say, "Oh, well, those are our allies. The Russians are our allies. The Soviet Union don't exist anymore." Well, what about now? You can see how much things change within the decade. Russia is the number one enemy of the USA now, and they're closer and closer to World War III. And this guy Putin, he's not going to want to negotiate. They're already they don't have tariffs. Why? Because they don't even trade with the U.S. right now. You can go ahead.
Yeah, this is Obadiah verse 6. It says, "How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up?"
Yeah, and right now the Heavenly Father is using his prophets to do that, right? Mainly starting with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, okay? But not only that, you got all these people on TikTok and whatnot. They're bringing it out, especially when it comes to you know who. All right, go ahead.
Yep, it says, "All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee."
Well, the whole thing with China, right? China's deceived America because the Chinese have gotten super rich off of the American consumer.
Oh yeah,
and the American pretty much like Trump is right. America's getting ripped off by everyone. And why is America getting ripped off? Because it's always been getting ripped off by everyone. Mainly because the people here in America are the Israelites. Okay. Yep. The driving force of the economic force of America are the Israelites. And it starts with the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. But also, you got a lot of IEFs. You got so-called Italians that are Israelites, so-called Irish that came here. Even during the times of hardcore slavery, the Irish were coming. A lot of them were Israelites, so-called indentured servants. Okay, so this whole spirit behind America, the hard-working spirit that made this place so-called great, was really off the blood, sweat, and tears of the Israelites, man. That's it. The captivity that our people have been in here. Can you read that again?
Yeah, it says, "All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is no understanding in him."
That bread is that American dollar, that U.S. economy. Yeah. Okay, that market. Because here it is. And then you see these people on the left, man. They got to be the most demonic force on earth, because they're over here. They're mad that this guy wants to help you out, you know, by creating more jobs and doing all these things supposedly, right? They're mad at that. No, these tariffs are bad. These other countries are laughing at you, especially the so-called Chinese. They look at you Americans as a joke. Well, they got the AI. I don't know if you guys seen those AI memes of of Americans working the factories.
No.
Oh, yeah. They're all obese. Oh, yeah. They're all Edomites. They're all look like they're all like Walmart customers. Making chips. You know what I mean?
Trying to make an iPhone.
Right? And they're just it's a scoff. Like, oh, so these are the people you're gonna give jobs to? But little do they know, they're gonna just ship in H-1Bs. Okay, they're gonna ship in labor from fucking Bangladesh, India. Okay, meanwhile, the rest of the American people, you're gonna be addicted to fentanyl. All right, you're gonna be addicted to fentanyl. You're gonna be diseased. You're gonna be dying. You're gonna be demanding a UBI, universal basic income, and then ultimately they're gonna just give you guys a chip.
Yeah, cause if I can say this too, because the ultimate goal of the elites also, or part of the goal, is depopulation. So within this decline that they're orchestrating, this you could say this systematic destruction of all the world economy, it's ultimately to bring everybody into the NW to the O, all right, and to push the MOTB. And within that, a lot of people have to die. Okay, right. So they're crashing all the economies. There's going to be famines. There's going to be uproars. There's going to be people fighting against each other. It's going to be a complete breakdown in society, breakdown of the grid. Okay, but this is all part of the plan to usher you into this new system. Because when everything turns back online, it's going to be a system of control from the top down. And you're going to have the MOTB to be able to enter into the system. And this is the system that Trump is laying out right in front of us. Okay, what Operation Warp Speed is still, the plan is, they're still moving forward with that agenda.
Yeah, but you know, the international bankers, they have a model, order out of chaos, which is order out of chaos. See, they created the chaos. That's why Maya Angelou said, give me control of the nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws. Because now that they have the control of the money, now they can direct it, you know, the way that they want the economy to go. Because they control all these different politicians, you know, worldwide, so they're able to manipulate them to pass legislation for their businesses. You know, which in turn is setting it up for the new system that's coming online. That's why you go to certain places, you know, cashless. You know, this place is cashless. You can't pay, you know, cash here. If you want to pay cash, you got to get on this long line. There's maybe one or two registers open for that. But if you want it nice and easy, you know, you just pay cashless. You know, you just go here, use your card, use your tap.
Yep, the tap.
Yeah, that's a new phase, because that's ultimately what they want. You know, so all of this going back and forth. Yeah, Trump is a madman. He's going crazy. He's doing a lot of erratic shit. But you know what? Ultimately, that's all just set up that way to usher in the new system that they want to bring in. So what else you got?
Yeah, this is Isaiah 14:11. It says, "Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee,
there you go,
and the worms cover thee."
Yeah, so the worm is spread under that. That's that corrosion. So it's twofold. The corrosion is physical. Your bridges are falling apart. Your streets are falling apart. And this is pretty much what this is. It's a witness against you for the wickedness that you've done and how you've gotten this society. This is why, you know, in the book of James, you know, the Lord had the Apostle James write down the Lord cursing out these elites, these rich men. Because how did they get their riches? They didn't get their riches by honest, hard working, you know, living. They got it by deceit, by fraud, you know, and all these things are witnessing against them now. And how are we seeing these witnessing? By this whole system falling apart. You know, the cancerous system that this world operates under, you know, and everything is falling apart. The average worker is coming against these devils, you know, because they're seeing that they're getting the short end of the stick, even though they were getting it already. They're getting an even shorter end of the stick, because the average, you know, so-called American is feeling the crunch. The middle class is feeling the crunch, you know. So they're to the point where they a lot of them wish they never would have voted for Trump.
Yeah,
you know. You had more?
Yeah, that was pretty much it on that.
Bring it up.
It's Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad.
Yeah, that wine they've drunken of is that debt, man, and of course all the philosophies. But economically speaking, these nations have all gone into debt.
Oh yeah,
because the so-called Chinese, they hold American securities. Okay, because when they sell products, what cash do they come? American dollar. Okay.
That's it.
The Saudis, when they sell their petrol,
Yep.
What cash? What's the exchange? It's the American dollar. So all these nations actually hold the U.S. Currency, and because the U.S. currency is rapidly declining and falling, and ultimately the Lord is setting it up to where these nations are in the spirit of getting off of it. Okay, it's going to lead to a new currency. It's going to lead to a new global reserve currency. Well, we've been talking about historically, right? Before World War I and World War II, the global reserve currency was the British sterling, British pound. Okay, you couldn't buy any type of, you couldn't do any international trade, right? Maritime trade without the exchange of the British sterling pound. Okay, and that's why the Japanese went crazy. Okay, the so-called Germans, okay, and these other nations went wild because they wanted to get off of that. But at the same time, like the apostle mentioned, the international bankers were playing all the sides.
Yeah.
Okay, they were investing in both sides, pressure from below, pressure from above. Okay, they've been in control of everything. Why? Because the war is the most profitable business for bankers. Okay, because what do wars need? Wars need financing.
Yep.
Right, and the biggest financiers on earth are those elite banking families, starting with what I call them the Rothschilds, the ruffians, the rough ones, the Rothschilds. All right, can you read that again, Baba Shah?
Yeah. This is Jeremiah 51:7. Babylon have been the golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the nations are mad.
And they're going mad right now. Well, that's why a lot of these nations are doing reciprocal tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, first of all, the USA is doing it to them,
Right.
and then they got the nerve to do it back.
Right.
But they already have tariffs on the USA,
Mm-hmm.
crazy ones.
Yeah.
That's why your Mercedes-Benz in America is very expensive. The reason why it's expensive because there's tariffs.
Yeah.
All right, and the reason why the BMW and all these foreign cars are expensive because there's a tariff. Well, the Japanese cars are more affordable. Why? Because there's the U.S. and the Japanese
Have trade deals.
They have trade deals.
Right.
The EU and mainly EU, they don't play like that. They want the money.
Right.
Well, see a lot of Jakes. They like drinking champagne from France, right?
Right. Cognac.
And then they drinking the Hennessy, right? Well, Hennessy is actually a shitty bottom shelf drink in France. Okay, but it's looked up as expensive in this because that's the way it was been marketed to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're drinking, but of course there is top shelf Hennessy, but the stuff you're getting that you think is nice is low level shit.
Yeah.
All right,
Headache juice.
but it's got that premium on it because of those tariffs. And I believe it's called LVMH.
Mm-hmm.
MH, right? Louis Vuitton, Moet, Hennessy.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a big company in France that sells Louis Vuitton, everything, the high end luxury brands. But mainly, they're cheap to make,
Mm-hmm.
but it's expensive here because they could charge it because it's a luxury item. But mainly because of those damn tariffs. All right, but they got the nerve to go out and put it back on you because it shows you they don't give a damn about the American people. They look at you as fat pieces of shit like the so-called Chinese.
If I can say this, and this is why the merchants of these other nations, they're going to wail when Babylon is ultimately destroyed, because they ultimately they want to still do business with America, because America is the cash cow.
Oh, you get rich.
Okay.
No, if it's like
Yeah, please.
Now, if they really wanted to make a statement, a bold statement, they would just say, "Fuck it, we ain't selling nothing else in America."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
Yep.
they ain't
But
gonna do
they're not going to do that. They're not
That's where
going
the
to do
money's
that
made.
because
That's
this
it.
is where the money is at. They're going to still, no matter what's going on, they're still going to do business with America because that's where the money is at. Okay.
Mhm.
America is the most what is it called? Consumer-based economy
Mhm.
in the world. This is where the most money is at. This is the rich city.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's Mactesh.
Yep. This place is, there's no other place on the planet like America.
Mhm.
That's why when the missiles hit this place and the lasers from the chariots, Nations are going to cry, not because they're going to feel sorry for this place, because they don't like this place. The only thing they like about this place is that they can make money.
Mm-hmm.
They can make their goods in their land cheaper and ship them over here. And that's why a lot of them are deciding to go back to their country, and just sell their stuff here because it's a lot cheaper. Because when you set up a business in America, there's a lot of red tape, a lot of taxes, a lot of shit that you got to do that makes your overhead even more. So if you make it in your country for 2 cents, and you ship it over here and sell it for $5, that's a big ass profit. Now if you had to make it here, you had to charge 15, 20, 25 bucks for that same product to make the same money.
Yeah, and then you got the nerve of these people here. I think Barbara Lee, she's this black woman that's running for a mayor in the city of Oakland, which is a complete fucking disaster, that city, right? She wants to do a $50 minimum wage. She wants to say a $50 minimum wage for the city of anyone who works in Oakland.
Damn.
And what's that going to do? Every business is going to leave that fucking city. Whatever business is there, they're going to leave because they're not going to be able to afford to pay those wages and live, right? And so that's the reason why, like the apostle was saying, the lot of America, they purposely create these things to make it easier for that globalized economy. But the more globalized the economy, the more globalized the world becomes, who gets more powerful? It's the international bankers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then the whole plan is getting rid of the borders, getting rid of the trade, the tariffs. They don't want none of that.
Right.
They're getting rid of foreign exchange.
Right.
They want a single currency for everyone to be on. They want a single wage that everyone to be working on.
Yep.
And in order for them to do that, they got to get rid of these type of things.
The whole system.
The whole system.
Yeah.
But in order for that whole system to be getting rid of, America got to get rid of.
Yeah.
Because America is the thing that's like I forget, Eustace Mullins, right? He always used to say, right? He said the Rothschilds, they used to hate the Constitution in America. So that's the thing that's standing in our way. The people in the United States, their spirit of so-called independence and being self-sufficient. Because before this America in the 90s and 80s existed, if you watch old films or you read old books, they looked at America as Wild Wild West. They still do. Right. But they looked at it like that's unstable. There's going to be they had the Civil War, right? Yeah. They thought there's going to be another Civil War. They saw slavery. They're backwards over there. Look how they treat those people. Those people are sick over there, right? And they looked at America as a wasteland. But now, as the way it's moving, it became so-called great after World War II. Yep. But now it's returning back to that Wild Wild West. It's returning back to that wasteland, and we're close to Civil War.
Yeah.
Precept. This is Habakkuk 2:16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered.
And that's the thing that's happening right now. Because as much as you want to say, "Oh, America's this or that," well, everything America's founded on is wickedness, evil. You got people. Oh, we got our founding fathers. Your founding fathers were Satanists. Okay, they were Freemasons. Oh yeah. They were deep into child sacrifice. Yeah. Oh, this is a Christian nation. No, it's not. If it was a Christian nation, you would have the word Christ in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights. That's not in there, man. This is they call it a secular nation. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep. It says, the cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory.
Right, and that shameful spewing is starting with the scriptures, okay, being broken down by the apostles and elders, Grant Millstone, to expose this place for what it is, man. Hypocrisy, full of lies, deceit, robbery, blood, murder, slavery, and everything you can imagine. That's America, okay. And these so-called white people that are on it right now, oh yeah, America's this or that. These Edomites, they used to move in a block when this place was on the come up. Now they keying each other's Teslas.
Oh yeah, I got that precept for it. Yeah.
They keying each other's Teslas. Oh, the household's broken. The wife is got a black boyfriend. The kids, your son is a daughter. Your daughter is a son. you Edomites are finished.
City of confusion.
It's
But-
broken down.
You did it to yourself, but you got the nerve to get mad that some nigga stabbed an Edomite in Texas at a track meet. That work day, that really bothers you.
Maybe he needed some.
He was an animal. He's a savage. Who does that? Hey man, people get stabbed every day.
Yeah.
Okay, Edomites, niggas, whoever. All right, but you're using that to get worked up on because you're mad at yourself for losing your country, man. And pretty soon, if you really love this place, you got to go fight that World War III. You got to go with that Valley of Jehoshaphat, strap in them war boots and fight for it, man.
Well, see, the thing is they're at war with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a tactic that the Most High is using against them.
Yep.
The same tactic that they use against the other nations, starting with Jacob,
Mm-hmm.
which is the divide and conquer.
Yeah, Esau, you don't have a savior, man.
I got that precept.
You don't have a savior. You don't have anyone to get behind. Yeah, you got Trump right now, but the half of America is against them.
Yeah.
So who do you really got? Because after Trump gets assassinated or terms out, who's going in there next?
Yeah, and then the people that voted for him, they're starting to turn against.
Yep.
So I wonder what the what the what's that called when the
Approval rating.
approval rating. I
Yeah.
wonder what his approval rating is now.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I can Google it.
And
Trump.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then you got this guy Trump. You know you got the pictures of him pulling out the seat for Bibi Netanyahu. You know,
Yeah,
showing you who's really the boss, man.
that's it.
Mhm.
And then he made a joke. I saw this clip of Trump making a joke. He said, "Hey, are you gonna put tariffs on the Israelis?" And Bibi is right next to him, right? He said, "Well, we already give them a lot. We give them about $4 million a year, $4 billion." And then you can see Bibi Netanyahu just rubbing his head.
Because and they had a list of the countries, right? I was surprised they had Israel in there.
Mm-hmm.
From China, from the highest all the way
Mhm.
down, and they had like what percentage of tariffs each country was given,
Yep.
and then they had Israel at 17%.
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe they just threw that in there just so they
Mhm.
won't say, well, why you ain't
Right,
taxing
right.
them, which
Exactly.
is bullshit.
Yeah. That
It's
was
like a smoke and mirror.
performative.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep. This is Isaiah 19:2. And I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom.
Right. That's that civil war. Now, I believe it's in the book of Mark. It could be the 13th chapter when you go to the NLT, where it speaks about kingdom against kingdom or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It really says civil war there, because they're gearing that up. Because you're going to have Americans fighting against Americans. Remember years ago,
Mhm.
Pastor said there's going to be class wars, you're going to have race wars, you're going to have different groups coming against other groups. So it's going to be like the scriptures say, they're going to the average citizen is going to go crazy because of the desperation that they're going to be set in. The society collapses. You got to remember that America is not like other countries. America has a system in place where everybody's able to function because the system is functioning and working for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Other countries, people got to fend for themselves.
Mhm.
People in America never really had to fend for themselves. You had jobs you could go to. You had when most people that lived in the cities, they had stores they could go to, shop, supermarkets,
Mhm.
eat food and all of that. Well, when that's shut down, the average person doesn't know what the fuck to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that what you think is gonna happen when a person can't eat? They're gonna find out who got what, and they're going go and get what these people have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna cause a state of desperation. You have some.
Yeah, I can read verse 3. It says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof.
Yeah, that spirit of America is dead. Okay, of freedom and prosperity and the pursuit of happiness, right? All this BS. Okay, it's dead. Okay, economic freedom and independence. Okay, because these people they don't want that. They want authoritarianism. Okay, they want government to be more empowered.
Yeah.
Okay, they want the government to go hard. Well, you can see right now. I saw this clip of this ICE clip of abuelita driving the car, right? And the Latina girl, the mom, the daughter is sitting there. right, with her mom, and then the mom wouldn't put her window down, and the ice just broke her window.
Damn.
Opened the door and said, "All right, it's time to go." And she's like, "No, preocupe, no preocupe. You just can't take her. You just can't take her." He's all crying, you know.
Damn.
We're gonna see a lot more of that, and people are gonna be looking at that. The how do you say, the public sentiment is gonna shift, because right now people support deportations.
Right.
The vast majority of the people of America support mass deportations, you know,
Until it start happening to them.
until it starts happening to them. And then, you know, I work in a legal field. A lot of motherfuckers, man, are in danger. A lot of motherfuckers are in danger. You undocumented, you got a DV case, okay? You're undocumented, you filed taxes before, all right? You're a guilt. Your green card expired, your visa expired, okay? You're potentially about to be deported. And actually, they're telling you to self-deport.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're telling you to do that right now, and that's that whole "oh, I'm going to come to America and live the America dream." It's cooked. It's finished.
Yeah, because everything is moving to a totalitarian, top-down world government.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is what they've been planning for really hundreds of years. Is the NW to the O. All right, where everybody's under one banner and everybody is under one CHIP.
Yep, and not only that, the spirit of like you said, the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof. Because back before, when immigrants would come here, they would so-called assimilate. They'd come here and they would start acting like an American. They get a job like an American, dress like an American, follow the laws. And so what? These fuckers are coming here treating this place like Colombia, man. Okay, they treat it like Central America. Next thing you know, this nigga, he's selling hot dogs on the sidewalk. Okay, you know, they don't think they need permits. They don't believe in permits because they got no permits in their country.
Right.
So they could just cook you food on the street and sell. They just think that they can just live their life like they were doing in their home country out here in America, man.
Well, Esau's giving them liberty, and that's all part of that order out of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's giving them the liberty to do all that, right? To run wild, to put pressure on the American economy, to piss off the American individuals that live here, and then come in with the force through Trump and Trump's so-called the savior, and then lock down.
Well,
and say we need more control.
Exactly.
You know, we have to control everything, and you know what? Hey, we need to control everything through a digital system now, right? So it was all really a setup from the beginning to allow the chaos, because it's very easy. Remember in San Francisco when Xi Jinping came in and how they cleaned it up? It's very easy for them to clean it up. They have the resources. They have the money to do it. They can hire the people. They can do it, but they don't want to do that. They want everything to collapse. They want everything to fall. They want everything to be in confusion. This is how Esau is. He's able to come in with the order now. The order is what? The hey, I need to lock you up. I need to deport you. We need to put digital tags on everybody.
Yeah, well, he's the ultimate instigator, right?
Yep.
Like he would do to Gad when he first started moving in out west. He would force Gad to attack him, to attack the fort. So he's now justified the roll in tough. All right, and that's exactly what he did. He allowed the borders to be wide open, bring all these people in. So what? So he could start cracking down on it. You know, they allowed the economy to get so bad, so people, all they do is rob, steal, and kill each other, so they could crack down on that. Like for Oakland, for instance, it's an experiment right now. It's a dumping ground for crime, drugs, illegal immigrants. Okay, and you can just drive through and you can see it. Graffiti, the blight.
You notice like all the major cities, they're pretty much setting up like that, because you have Chicago here, you know, different other places. The major cities, you know, are being overrun with the homeless, drug addicts, you know, the smash and grabs and all of that. You know, so it's on purpose, because they know once they can bring these major cities down, then the rest will be easy. You know.
Yeah, I'll continue. It says, and the spirit of Egypt shall fail in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, and they shall seek to the idols.
Yeah, the council thereof, that's dealing with these different so-called politicians, mayors, you know, different senators. They're going to be looking for answers, but they're not going to have any answers. You know, like you were saying, that chick, you know, she's wants make minimum wage $50. Bottom line, that's all a setup.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, they don't give a fuck about the people.
Mm-hmm.
They got an agenda, and the agenda is collapse the economy of America.
That's it.
Collapse these major cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that we can bring in this new system. You know, like you said, no borders. You know, one world government, one world, economy. You know, one world religion. Everything under the control and banner of the international banking families.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what they've been doing systematically through each country.
Yep.
You know, and then I found that precept out.
Okay, Khan.
Then I'll let y'all come in. This is Mark 3:24. It says, and if a kingdom, this is in the NLT, and if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. Right? That's in KJV. In the NLT, it says a kingdom divided by civil war will collapse. You see, and that's what it is. You know, because division is just that, civil war.
Yep.
You know, the Civil War wasn't Japanese fighting against Americans. It wasn't South Americans fighting against Americans. It was Americans fighting against Americans. And that's what you see happening right now. Egyptian against the Egyptian. There's a lot of tension between, people that's supposed to be on the same side.
Yep.
And I think Trump today, he announced he's cutting all federal funding to sanctuary cities. So these cities, like you're saying, Oakland and San Francisco and Los Angeles, just speaking for California as of right now, those are sanctuary cities, man, and they are heavily reliant on federal funding. Well, right now, LA had them fires. This guy Gavin Newsom, he's saying, "Hey, we need the federal government to come in to save us because California ain't got the money for it. The city of LA County don't got the money for it. Okay." Pasadena, the Palisades, Los Angeles City don't have the fucking money for it. So they're begging the government to do it. But now you got this guy Trump saying, hey, you got certain laws and a certain way of trying to do things where you're not going to get the funding. That's part of that civil war.
Yeah.
Because of the sanctuary city policies that the local agencies do not cooperate with the federal agencies. So there was this one guy in LA, El Salvadorian dude. He got caught dumping a dead body in Oxnard, and he was a soccer coach.
Damn.
Illegal immigrant, and he raped and killed a 13-year-old boy, one of his soccer players, and he dumped him over there in Oxnard. But guess what? They found this guy at the border, and they let him in. All right, and not only after that, they let him in. In 2019, he was accused of raping 2 other boys. So if the federal government had access to those reports, the dude would have got deported if there was some sort of cooperation amongst the state and local agencies and the federal government.
There you go.
So a lot of these people talk about, California is going to do a secession. That's going to lead to civil war. These states wanting to secede. And you got the people that live within the state that want to secede. They would, like, for instance, I believe parts of Oregon want nothing to do with Portland, right? And they say, we want to be part of Idaho. We want to be part of this state. I think even parts of California don't even want to be part of this state. They want to create a new state or merge in with a different state. All right. Well, though, there's the reason why a lot of people left California for places like Texas and Florida. They're losing congressional seats, they're losing population and whatnot. And that's because that sentiment, there's a cultural divide, there's all kinds of divisions in America, and it's all going to manifest into dog eat dog very, very soon, especially when they cut the water off. They cut the water off, they're going to cut the electricity, right? And they're going to cut off your food. And all you're going to have left out here is the strong man. And when it goes down to that time, you already know what time it is, man.
I got a piece of for you. This is 2 Ezra 15 and 14.
Yep.
Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh. And you could jump in whenever you're ready.
Sure.
It says, and one people shall stand up and fight against another.
Yeah, then that sword and that destruction draweth nigh, that nuclear war, that World War III. Like we were saying, all these other nations are gearing up for war. Okay, they're making weapons as we speak, nuclear weapons. Okay, they're training the armies, having war games. Well, the whole thing with Greenland, right? they make it a big deal about Greenland this, Greenland that, is because I believe the what country is it? Uses that place for war games. Denmark.
Oh, Denmark, yeah.
Right? They actually they use some of their armies to go over there and you do war games. And the U.S. is like, hey, we need to use that for war games because that's close to that Arctic water where they're going to have war with who? The Russians. You know, people think, oh, this guy's crazy. He wants the Greenland. No, it's a strategic geopolitical move to prepare for World War III, to fight against the Russians. Okay?
Right. It says, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands.
Yeah, but that's going to be that racially divided, class divided, but mainly racially divided war. You already see the sentiment right now. Every little event is a George Floyd moment, right? They're talking about this Carmelo Anthony kid stabbing that white boy. What's his name? Austin Metcalf, and down there in Texas, right? They're trying to hype that up on the white man's side as their George Floyd moment. Oh, we got to do something about it. But it's going to get worse because you're going to actually see a group of Jakes and a group of Edomites going to war. Not on sort of, what was that? The riverboat fight.
The chair.
The chair. That's come on, man.
Yeah.
But
you know these devils, they got a nerve to be mad. Like you actually lynched Jake in this. You know, I mean, brother, we could go on and on. What you did to Gad, what you did to Reuben, what you did to Issachar. When you lynched Jake, you actually did that shit, and you actually took pictures and sent those as postcards.
Well, that's why they're mad, because they can't do it no more.
Right.
They're mad. They just can't grab that nigga out the jail and give him the good old justice.
Yep.
You know, they're mad. That's why they're angry. Like, man, back then, you know, they yearn for that day. Well, guess what? They're going to get that moment. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
During the time of Jacob's trouble, believe that, Esau, you're going to get your little moment. You're going to be able to get busy. You may get one of them niggas at the IUIC march, right?
Yeah,
you may want to get one of them niggas and hang them from the gallows.
Yeah. Because you know when anarchy breaks out, law and order's out the door.
Yep.
You know, they showed you that in where was that at? That was in during Hurricane Katrina. That was 2005, I believe. You know, when you had them Jakes that were trying to flee, you know, even people that was cool with them, they turned against them.
Yep.
You know, so it don't matter when that time comes. You know, if there's no law and order, you could do whatever the hell you want to do. And that's why it goes on to say, in verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another.
That's right.
You want to say something on that?
Yeah, and that sedition is just that total disregard for whatever law there is on the land. And America's lawless right now. As of right now, it's lawless, especially here in the Bay Area. Right?
Yeah.
It's lawless. Okay, and that's going to seep into the rest of the country, and it already is, to where there's complete disregard. Well, what do kids do for fun out here? They go to these things called street takeovers or sideshows.
Yeah.
It's complete it's barbarism, right? They're out there just whipping the cars around, killing each other, shooting guns in the air, you know. And then what was a nigga find fun out here? Sending pimping, hoes, you know, stealing, robbing, you know. It's like that's all they're up to now. And that lawlessness is gonna manifest because pretty soon there's not gonna be any more police because these cities are broke. So what do they cut? They cut the fire department. They cut the police department. And pretty soon, the only type of law is going to be the Gurkha troops, right? UN troops, the Marines, okay, the federal government. They're going to have to bring a military police in because there's going to be a complete collapse of these states and these cities because of complete mismanagement, which is it's all planned, it's all designed.
There shall be as madmen spared none. You know, you have the foreign troops. You also have, you know, the AI.
Yeah, you're gonna get the robots out here, the drones.
There you go. You know, I mean, the movie, The First Purge. You know, my man, they had a trained, you know, pretty well organized group that was rolling with him, and just like that, then drones came and just took them all out. You know, so robots don't have emotions. You know, like you had the movie Monsters of Man.
Yeah.
You know, with those 4 robots, and the one robot went rogue, with the other 3, they was just mercilessly killing people, taking them out. You know, so Esau, you know, I mean, man, we in a time of great great prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And the technology that the Lord gave us, though, is geared just to fulfill prophecy.
That's
You
right.
know. So you want to say something? It says, "For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another." See, because right now people, you know, don't invade other people. They, you know, they sort of respect the boundary. But there's gonna come a point where that boundary, there's gonna be line stepping going on. You know, because they're not gonna regard that line anymore. That invisible line that's there, where you know you respect your neighbor or whatever, blah blah blah. That's gonna be gone because of desperation. It says, "They shall not regard their kings nor princes," because you know you would figure that by now, 2025, these people would be fed up with voting. They said, why should we vote? It doesn't work. But they still doing it. But there's gonna come a point where they say, you know what? F the voting, F these cops, F these, you know, judges, F these politicians, these senators, governors, and all that. We're gonna take matters into our own hands. And that's what you're gonna have. That's what the movie Civil War was pretty much about. You know, you had those individuals that had their militias, you know, and they were pretty much, you know, governing themselves. They weren't regarding the U.S. Army. They weren't regarding the U.S. government. They were actually fighting against each other, both against each other, militaries against militaries, you know, militias against militias, whatever the case may be. You know, and then what the bottom line, because when that movie came out, it was heavy. You got all these so-called migrants here, illegals. And then what he asked to do, he said, "What are you? American. What kind of American are you?" You see? Because at the end of the day, Esau is only accepting their own.
Yep.
That it don't matter if you was born in America or not. If you're not an Edomite, they're gonna look at you as the enemy. You know?
And the problem why they're in this situation that they're in, they're gonna look at you and blame you.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know.
It says, "And the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Why? Because anarchy sets in. What is anarchy? No rule. Is no, archy is rule. So anarchy is no rule.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no rule of law to stop them from doing what they want to do, obtaining what they want to obtain. You know, and that's when the society is going to collapse. And this is going to be the time of Jacob's trouble. That's going to be a part of the time of Jacob's trouble when all hell breaks loose. You know, we fast approaching that. And, you know, this is what we've been doing, just blowing the trumpet, warning Jacob here what's coming, whether they listen or not. You know, and then you have other Israelite groups that are more concerned about making money, looking good, you know, pushing out gimmicks than they are with warning the people of the things that are coming.
That's right.
You know, giving marriage counsels and, you know, or showing how, you know, a real man only deals with one woman. That simp mentality, you know, that demonic American or westernized, you know, world thinking. Instead of really warning the people, that's why the Lord said in Ezekiel 13 that you have not gone up into the gaps. You know, you haven't set up the hedge for the children of Israel to prepare themselves in the day of the Lord's wrath, in the day of the Lord's day, when all hell breaks loose, during the time of Jacob's trouble. Because what these people are going to do with marriage counsel when Jacob's trouble happens? How's that going to help them in this situation? How's that going to help them when the hour of temptation comes in, when the only way you're going to be able to eat is to take their microseed? How is a marriage counsel or teaching them about marriage counsel or teaching them about wearing fringes going to help them in that day? You know?
Yeah, you're going to be wearing fringes when they outlaw it. When they're looking for Israelites to lynch and kill and hang. Are you just going to be, oh no, I got to wear them? You're going to get your whole family killed and get yourself killed.
That's it.
You know, you're stupid. You know, but that's they're leading the flock to the slaughter, man. These are ill-conceived people, man.
Yeah.
Wicked servants and wolves in sheep's clothing, man.
That's it. And it says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. See? And why? Because of desperation. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. You know? And that's the time of Jacob's trouble, that great tribulation that's coming. You know, and all of these birth pains that you see happening, you know, with all of these jobs leaving and people catching hell and businesses closing, you know, people can't afford to even put food on their table anymore. Got to work 2 and 3 jobs just to be able to pay bills and put gas in your car, you know, and make it to the next week or the next day. You know, that's causing a lot of panic in a lot of these people. And these people are not used to going through hard times like that, you know? So that's going to cause a lot of problems, you know, and you're not going to, the military ain't going to be able to stop these people, the cops, because you don't have with so many cops. If all of the citizens in a particular city decide to raise up, you ain't going to be able to stop them, you know? So it's going to get bad out here, man. You know, your brother got any more precepts, any more points I wanted to bring out? All right, so with that, you know, we pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. The next time we say
Shalom.
Shalom.